Hi sociology students, it's Mrs. T and this is week 8. So you're getting this video a couple of days later than you usually do during the week because we had midterms just finished up, and so I got all your midterm grades posted earlier today. Hopefully you've been seeing those little short video updates I've been sending. So anyway, we do have a couple of video lectures to do for our new unit. You've got a reading assignment listed in Blackboard. Just go to course content and you'll see it's the next thing. It's in between the week 7 and the week 8 folders. I put an announcement about what the chapters are that we're going to be working on. This particular unit, the whole thing, chapters 7 through 10, have to do with the concept called social stratification. I was waiting for my geography video to upload when I drew all of this beautiful stuff on the board for you, and hopefully there's no glare on the board so you can see it better than usual. And also I'm going to use a big bold black marker from now on, so you should be able to take a screenshot of this or stop the video momentarily and copy this into your notes if you want to. However, remember, this is just the skeleton of what we're going to talk about, so give yourself some space in your notes if you're going to pause this and copy it down right now, because we need to know how do these key words go together to make a good definition of what social stratification is all about. So, there is a key word in this unit, this entire unit, that I don't have on the board, and it's a pretty important key word. That key word is inequality. Social inequality on the macro scale. That's really what we're talking about here when we look at social stratification. This word stratification is taken from geosciences and natural sciences, where it talks about like different layers of the atmosphere or different layers of the earth. You know, you have the lithosphere and the asthenosphere and the mantle and the core and all this kinds of stuff, if I remember correctly from my geology classes. So all of those things, if you can think back to 8th grade physical science class, or whenever it was that you took that class where your science book had like a cross section of what the earth looked like, and it had like different rings on the inside, different layers that you could identify by name. That's what this word stratification means. So when we say in sociology, social stratification, we're talking about layering. We're talking about ranking. I think your textbook author uses the word hierarchical arrangement. That's a difficult word for me to say, so I'm going to say ranking instead. I hope YouTube knows how to spell hierarchical when I stumble over the pronunciation of it. But social stratification is about ranking of inequality. It's an inequality comparison among the different categories of people that exist in a society, categories of people on the macro scale. We're talking about huge social groupings of people who have certain characteristics in common. Those characteristics that we're going to talk about the most in this first chapter, when we talk about, or chapter 7, the first chapter of this unit, the characteristics that we're going to talk about the most that identifies these categories of people for the USA are 3 achieved statuses that I told you way back in that chapter you were going to get sick and tired of hearing me say them, but it's income, occupation, and education level. Those 3 achieved statuses that we combine into one vocabulary word, socioeconomic status. So in the USA, the way that we rank people, for the most part, the first way that we're going to look at ranking people in this class, the first way we're going to do that is by the categorization of those people based on what's your income, what's your occupation, what's your education level combined, and therefore where do you fit on this ladder that I haven't pointed to yet. But in this unit we're going to get our fill of Mrs. T drawing ladders, and thankfully it's one of the things that I can draw pretty well if I can get a straight line correct. So this ladder represents macro scale society, and the rungs on the ladder, these different steps on the ladder, are called rungs, and these different rungs on the ladder represent the unequal social categories among the population. So in the USA, have I said this already? Income, occupation, and education level are the 3 achieved statuses that we combine into something called socioeconomic status, and those if we reduce it, we're going to reduce the complications of social stratification and understanding social stratification. We're going to reduce that to those three simple things, that one socioeconomic status, in order to try to first understand and look deeper into this ranking of categories of people in society. So, in general, I've said a lot about the USA, the USA, the USA. However, this unit is much more about social stratification in general than merely social stratification and social inequality in the United States. We're also going to look at social inequality worldwide. We're going to look at gender inequality and racial inequality, ethnic inequality, sexuality inequality, all of these different kinds of nuances that go into ranking categories of people in politics, in our hearts and minds, in our culture. And so that's what this unit is going to be all about. So for a thorough definition of what social stratification is, yes, it's a ranking, an unequal layering of different categories of people based on their access and control of resources. And in the United States, those resources are income, occupation, and education level for the most part. We're going to look at those. You also have heard me talk a lot about social resources before, just because they also include things that are not so much about money, but about power, authority, influence, policy making, those kinds of things. Some of those same kinds of issues that came up when we were talking about the differences in white-collar crimes and property crimes when we were making a comparison in recent lectures in the Deviance and Crime chapter. So social stratification is the entire theme for all of these 4 chapters that are in your reading assignment. Begin reading them now. And I think I gave you a November 13th date of setting a goal to have all of it read by then. If you have chapter 7 read between now and, say, Monday or Tuesday of next week, I think that's going to be like the October 20th, you'll be in really good shape, because at the end of next week, we are going to get Project 2. No, not Project 2, Project 3. We're on Project 3, this is Unit 3, and you're going to get Project 3 at the end of next week, which is going to ask you to make some comparisons of style of life, micro-scale life experiences that exist because macro-scale social stratification creates this ranking of inequality. Some people live a social existence here, some people live here, some people live here. Their social resources, their access to simply daily needs, daily luxuries or not, those kinds of things are vastly different from extreme poverty to extreme wealth. So our social outlook, our assumptions as individuals, our assumptions about other people's backgrounds might be very different, because if our life experience, if our socialization process took place here, and your socialization process in your group took place here, well, then we are individual members of different categories of people on a macro scale basis. My social outlook is very different from your social outlook. And this goes back to why class is an ascribed status, as we learned it back in chapter 4. So I have referred a lot back to good old chapter 4, which Project 2 was all about. And now we're in chapter 7. You're going to have to take a lot of that knowledge from the first half of the semester into this one, because we're building our knowledge here, people. We're getting a deeper understanding, and we are making progress toward those learning objectives that we have for this class. And you will take these learning objectives and run with them, and when we achieve those, it's usually the case that students are able to remember a lot of the nuances of these lessons well into your adulthood and your career life, and it just helps you be a better citizen, a better steward of your own decisions and your own understanding about your life. In other words, this is helping us build toward our sociological imagination. Our sociological imagination is the ability to see the connection between our micro-scale existence, like whatever rung of the ladder you come from, and the macro-scale structure that creates our micro-scale existence to begin with, and therefore dictates, like sets parameters and rules about what a lot of our life experiences are going to be. I felt myself talking a little fast there, and I'm trying not to because that was one of the things on the pulse check quiz. Some of you were like, slow down, there's a glare on the whiteboard, write more clearly so you can see it. So I'm trying to do all of these things, but I've apologized before for getting a little excited about this stuff. It's fun to talk about, and so I hope that you will contact me with your questions, and definitely as we get deeper into this, I want to hear from you and write me a reaction paper about this stuff. So there's going to be 2 more short lectures this week. I know I told you that last week. I told you I was going to do functionalist and conflict view of the defund the police movement. I still intend to do that for you. It will be an optional video though that you can just look at, but I didn't completely go brain dead on that. I just ran out of time with some things that were happening, not only at school, but in my household, and then with midterms. You understand, right? Like I understand when you have to have a little bit of grace with turning in assignments. So I will be doing that for you, but it's not going to be a required video once it's ready, and you'll get a quick announcement from me. So there will be 2 more short videos this week though, because I need to explain to you the difference between an open system of social mobility and a closed system of social mobility, because that topic is necessary for you to understand how people, based on like the macro scale social structure and the norms and the social facts that some people have to live in based on the way their culture is compared to the way our culture is, some people's access and control of resources is ascribed to them and unchangeable, and other people's access to and control of social resources is achievable. So it's 2 different kinds of statuses that we're looking at here. So we'll look at open and closed systems of social stratification and the concept of social mobility. And that social mobility concept is what the American dream is based on. So we'll be looking at the American dream again. But also there is a very, 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 do you hear how my voice got deeper? A very important concept that you must have a thorough understanding of in this social stratification chapter, and that is life chances. So we will have a 3rd short video this week on what the concept of life chances is. And I'm going to expand on the definition that your textbook author gives you. She gives you a correct definition, but it's just a little bit easier, in my opinion, to understand it if we kind of break it down and look at what all the pieces mean in the definition of life chances. Look at what the significance of what everything means, especially when we are trying to more deeply understand, like zoom out. If this is our rung on the ladder where we live, this second from the last rung on the ladder, and somebody else is from this second to the top rung on the ladder, we're going to have different social outlooks, and it's probably going to be based to a large extent on this concept of life chances that we're going to investigate pretty deeply, because it's going to be one of the key things that you need to know deeply and be able to express in your own words for Project 3 that I mentioned. So we've got a lot to do this week, and this is your first video. Please text me with questions, post on the discussion board, and look for another video from me later today.